She mispronounced a word while standing to read, with her hands trembling slightly. Uche, a youngster seated in the rear, broke out laughing. She can't even speak English correctly. Perhaps she should return to the farm with her parents. The class burst out laughing, and a little girl named Nneka used to live in a lively community surrounded by verdant hills and the soothing murmur of streams. She was 14 years old, bright with wide, inquiring eyes, and a heart as soft as the breeze that rustled through the village trees. Nneka was recognized for her friendliness and a bright grin. Her parents, who worked as farmers, adored her. They were not affluent, but their house was full of affection. Nneka has always considered school to be her safe haven. She enjoyed studying, especially reading. Stories were her retreat, a place where she could get lost. But as she progressed through high school, that refuge began to seem like a battlefield. The sparkle in Nneka's eyes faded gradually as school became a source of anguish rather than delight. It all began with quiet murmurs in the classroom. "Look at her shoes," one of her classmates laughed. Nneka wore the same pair of shoes every day. They were scuffed and the soles were old, but her parents couldn't afford to replace them. She did not think much of it at first. After all, her mother had always advised her to focus on her education rather than what others had, but the whispers grew louder. During break, Nneka sat under the tree to read her book when a group of females passed by. One of them, Nneka, the most popular girl in class, scoffed, "What sort of rural girl reads at break? Don't you have any friends?" The other females giggled. Nneka glanced down, pretending not to hear them, but the hurt of their words penetrated deeply. From that day on, it became a daily routine. Nneka and her friends would pass by, make snide comments, sometimes throwing pebbles in her direction, calling her loner and bush girl. It was more than simply the females. Even some of the boys took part. One day during English class, the teacher asked Nneka to read aloud. Reading was something Nneka loved, but now even that felt like a trap. She mispronounced a word while standing to read, with her hands trembling slightly. Uche, a youngster seated in the rear, broke out laughing. She can't even speak English correctly. Perhaps she should return to the farm with her parents. The class burst out laughing, and Nneka's cheeks became heated with humiliation. She swiftly sat down, her eyes burning with tears that she fought to let fall. She realized she couldn't exhibit vulnerability since it would just make everything worse. From that day on, she tried to fade into the background, hoping no one would notice her. But the more she withdrew, the more they targeted her. As the months went by, the bullying took a darker turn. One day after school, as Nneka was packing her bag to go home, Nneka and her friends blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Nneka scoffed and moved forward with a nasty smile. Before Nneka could respond, another girl, Chika, ripped her rucksack off her shoulder, scattering its contents on the floor. "Oops," Chika said mockingly. The other girls giggled. Nneka bent down to pick up her things, but just as she reached for her notebook, Nneka stomped on it, grinding it into the dirt. "Why are you so silent, Nneka? Can't you defend yourselves?" Nneka mocked. Nneka did not reply. She kept her head down, her heart racing in her chest. She understood better than to fight back. They were more powerful and in numbers. Nneka and her companions then set out to make Nneka's life miserable. They would trip her in the corridor, yank her hair in class, and laugh as she yelled out in agony. The teachers observed but frequently ignored it as kids being kids. No one realized how deeply Nneka's spirit was being crushed. Nneka attempted to hide her anguish at home. Her parents were already struggling to make ends meet, and she didn't want to add to their stress. Her mother did, however, observe the difference in her daughter. Nneka, who was formerly full of day-to-day anecdotes, now scarcely talked. After school, she would go to her room and lie on her bed in silence. One evening, her mother entered her room and sat on the side of the bed. "What's wrong, Nneka, my love? Why aren't you talking to me anymore?" Nneka gazed at her mother, tears welling up in her eyes, which she immediately brushed away. "I am okay, Mama. I am just tired from school." Her mother nodded but didn't push further. She told herself it was just the pressure of school, that Nneka would bounce back. After all, children go through phases, right? However, Nneka was actually breaking down on the inside. Every day seemed like a fight she was losing. She tried telling herself that things will improve, but they didn't. Things reached their pinnacle one day, a week before the conclusion of the term. During break time, as Nneka sat alone, Nneka and her group approached again. This time, they were carrying a bucket of dirty water they had taken from the bathroom. Without warning, Nneka dumped the water over Nneka's head. The girls erupted in laughter as Nneka sat there, drenched and ashamed. Her books were destroyed, her clothing stuck to her flesh, and the pain of their wickedness was excruciating. She could not take it anymore. She hurried home crying furiously, unconcerned whether anybody saw her. That evening, Nneka composed a letter to her parents. The words sprang from her heart, filled with agony and sadness. "I can't do it anymore. The anguish is unbearable and I feel so alone. I love you, but I don't want to live this way." The next morning, Nneka's mother went to get her up for school, but her bed was chilly. She committed suicide at night. The village was devastated. Nneka's death shook everyone to their core. Her parents were overcome with regret and sorrow. Their gentle, beautiful kid had been going through so much pain they had never known. The school was taken aback. Nobody had known how severe the bullying had gotten. Nneka and her friends, once so full of pride and arrogance, were now drowning in guilt. This was not how they had intended it to end. They had assumed they were only amusing themselves. However, a life had been lost, and they would always carry the guilt for their deeds. The village came together to mourn Nneka, but also to reflect on what had happened. The parents, teachers, and students realized that they all had a role to play in preventing another tragedy like this. They had failed Nneka by not seeing her pain, by not stopping the bullying before it became too much. Nneka's tale serves as a sobering reminder of how crucial it is to watch out for our kids. Parents, pay attention to the changes in your child's behavior. Don't dismiss their sadness as just a phase. Ask questions, listen, and most importantly, let them know that they can always come to you with their problems. Teachers, you have the power to create a safe and supportive environment for all students. A bully is more than simply kids being kids. It is capable of destroying lives. Teach your pupils the importance of compassion and empathy while taking a proactive approach to tackling bullying situations. To the young ones watching, I want you to remember Nneka. Think about how your words and actions affect others. Though you could believe that making fun of someone is harmless, you never know what internal struggles they may be facing. Show kindness, speak out for others who are being mistreated, and remember that you are not alone if you are the target of bullying. Make contact. Your life is precious and there are individuals who genuinely care about you. Nneka's story is a tragic one, but it is also a call to action. Let us not wait for another life to be lost before we learn the importance of compassion. Let's raise compassionate kids, teach them the value of kindness, and build a world where all kids are safe and cherished. Question time. Have you ever had a terrible bully experience growing up? If yes, how were you able to navigate through? Do you think bullies still exist and that innocent lives are still being destroyed as a result? 4. What do you have to say about bullies? Should they be arrested, punished, or pardoned? Kindly give reasons for your answer. And lastly, 4. What's your take home from this video? Kindly share your thoughts in the comments box. Thank you.